Hello, and welcome to this edition of The Sacred Realms. And today, our topic is going to be what should you do if you find yourself out of your body? Now, it's such a unique experience, and you never know if you're going to have another one. For some people, they only have one in their entire lifetime, or they might be separated by years. So you don't want to waste the experience when you do have one. You want to make the best of it. So that's the question today. What should you do if you find yourself out of your body? Well, the first thing that you should do is you should be really grateful for the experience. Be really excited. You should be a little bit like a kid in a candy store, full of awe. But at the same time, it's very, very important that you not be afraid. Now, I know there's a certain amount of fear of the unknown, but there should be more a feeling of awe and wonder because you're entering into a space that's completely unknown where the rules of reality are completely different. So that's why I'm saying don't be afraid, because being afraid has a way of really causing problems when you're out of your body, because anything that you fear, any thoughts that you have, manifest instantly. And so it can quickly create a nightmare type scenario. And if you're not aware of how these things work, it can really get out of control very quickly. So the old idea that you create your own reality is very true when you're out of your body, except that it's completely instant. So remember, not be afraid. Be in a state of wonderment, a state of awe, and be ready for the most amazing experience that you're going to have in your entire life. That's how I would start the experience. You want to take it all in as much as possible. Be very aware. Be ready for anything that can come your way. Watch your peripheral vision, if that makes any sense. But don't get caught up in the actual typical ways of the waking world where you only see and perceive things in a certain way. For instance, a lot of people have reported when they have an out-of-body experience that their vision is 360, that they can see things all around them. And so you're not limited by your physical body. You have senses that you've never experienced before. So that's why I say take it all in. Now, the other thing that sometimes people like to do that I probably should do more of is that you can always ask for help, ask for guidance. Because we're kind of new to this realm, why not ask if your higher self, if your guides, if certain angels or beings of a higher perspective can come and guide you, give you some kind of advice, give you some kind of understanding of what's there and what's available. And they can even take you to different places, kind of like tour guides. So you can ask them, what would be best for me right now under the circumstances? Where could I go? What could bring me the most learning, the most growing experience possible? That's something to really take into consideration. I know some people, again, are going to be afraid and say, well, if I ask for guidance, how do I know that the ones that come to me, the beings that show up, have my best interest at heart? Well, they will if your heart is pure. If you're really looking for sincere guidance, they will connect. They will be a perfect match to your energetic field, and they will be there to help you in the best way possible. That's how things work in the out-of-body state. So don't be afraid. Ask for guidance and be willing to accept what comes your way. Now, of course, you can go places. I remember someone asking me years ago, so could you go to, say, the other side of the planet? Could you go visit the pyramids in Egypt, for instance? Well, of course, you could do that. Whenever I try to do things like that, it seems like it doesn't work out that well for me. But remember, you're not in just the physical world anymore. You're in the next dimension. So while you can go to physical places on the planet, you could go to other planets, and you're not limited by what's in this dimension. you're in the next dimension, which overlaps this one. So there's no telling where you could go. You could go into the record halls, into the Akashic records. You could learn about your past. You could ask for guidance there. You could connect with your past lives, with all kinds of things. You're only limited by your imagination. So keep that in mind. Now, another thing that you could do is you could try to get guidance about what's going on with your life, with your own existence. Basically, it's kind of like sitting down with a counselor. So in that respect, you could sit there. Well, I say that metaphorically speaking, of course. You could be there and you could look at your life path, what you came here to do, what your best course of action is. So getting a really deep understanding of maybe what you need to do in your life. It's kind of like strengthening your will is what I like to call it. If you really truly know what you're supposed to be doing in your life, in this incarnation, in this existence, then it gives you a power to move forward. Again, if you completely knew why you were here and what your mission is, you would have no choice in that moment but to move forward and do what it is that you need to do. So keep that in mind. And remember, when you're trying to get those kinds of answers, you can always ask for help. And it could just come from within, or it could come from beings that are there to help you. And remember that they have your best interest at heart. So the other one that's kind of difficult for me, because there's been times when I would go into an out-of-body experience and I had a list. I had a list of things that I wanted to do, that I wanted to accomplish, that I wanted to understand, that I wanted to see. I wanted to straighten out all different things that were going on in my life. And that's normal. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We all want higher understanding. We all want to get clarity. But sometimes the best thing to do is just to go with the flow. What that means for me is if some particular thing is happening and you become aware that you're out of body, instead of trying to stop it, whatever it is that's going on, maybe you just roll with it. Maybe you just flow with it and try to understand what this experience is there to show you, what this experience is there to teach you. And it doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you find yourself in a conversation with a particular being and you don't know why you're there. But if you just quiet your mind and just pay attention to what's going on, there's probably a lot of wisdom that's there for you. I know that many times I would write down my dreams and I would think to myself, what a silly dream. Now, we all have those thoughts. And I would think there's nothing there for me. This is ridiculous. I don't even know why I'm writing it down. And then later on, a couple of weeks later, I'd be writing in my dream journal. And I have this habit of going back and looking at dreams that I've had in the past. And I was looking at a dream that I had written down a few weeks earlier. I thought it was total gibberish at the time. But upon looking at it later on, for whatever reason, it made perfect sense. And I couldn't believe that it wasn't clear to me at the time that I had it, because it was so obvious. But it had become obvious based on things that had happened. Although it wasn't clear at the time, there were things that made it more clear as time went on. That's why I'm saying that even if things might seem a little bit fuzzy or a little bit confusing, just go with it. Try to be as aware as possible. Try to ask, okay, why am I in this situation? How can this be helpful for me? And just see where it leads you, because you never know how this deep wisdom might come to you. And remember, you're not operating with the same exact mind that we're using right now in the physical world. You have access to all these abilities and all these aspects of your higher self when you're out of your body. So you might become aware of things that are so deep and so cosmic that it's almost impossible to really relate, to have discussions about them in waking world. Sometimes I've had those kinds of experiences where something was so incredible, so cosmic, but yet I just couldn't even figure out a way to write down the experience. I was at a complete loss. Although sometimes when I've tried to share those experiences with other people that have had similar experiences, I would do my best. And sometimes there was this perhaps somewhat telepathic communication that would happen with that person. And they would tell me, they would say, okay, I understand that you're at a loss for words, but I've had similar experiences and I can kind of understand what it is that you're trying to tell me that just can't be shared with words. So that's something to keep in mind. So to recap, don't be in fear, be in awe of the situation. Ask for help. Ask for guidance. Remember, you can go places, not just physically, but you're in another dimension. So the old saying, the world is your oyster, the universe is all there waiting for you, seen and unseen. There is no limit to what you can do and where you can go. You can use that time to do inner reflection, to look at what's going on in your life, to analyze your life. And lastly, and for me again, this is the hardest one, just go with the flow of what's going on and see where it takes you. I hope that you can find something useful in this. If that's the case, then I'm forever blessed and just grateful that you made it to the end of this little conversation that we've had here about what you should do if you get out of your body. Thanks for listening to this edition of The Sacred Realms.